Okay, so I had a request to look at taking a three view of a boat hull and producing a solid to be machined from that. So first I want to look and get such a file, and I'll bring it into the software. Going into Bob Art and just go to Images, right clicking it, and click Load Image. And in this case, it is this Grayling skiff that I got off of a Google image search. Alright, with the three view, you basically have some things in common. Drafting convention is that they will be lined up. This point of the bow is directly beneath this point of the bow. And you'll get a front and a rear view. The front is on this side, the rear is on this side. That gives you some idea of what exactly is going on. In this case, it's a plank construction. It's made out of plywood, and it's basically plywood panels joined together at the intersections here. Chines, they're called, I think, in nautical terminology. So we've got a lot of things to sort of integrate and take note of in the drawing before we really ever get to getting into CAD with this. We really have to understand this shape before we go about figuring out a way to draw it. So let's just start with the top and work our way down. Start at the gunnel here, the top edge of the boat. One side you're in the boat, the other side you're not. You'll see that it goes from the pointy bow back here to the blunt stern. And if we look down in the lower drawing, we'll see that its highest point is at the bow, swoops down in a gentle curve all the way to just before the transom, the very back end of the boat where you'd mount the motor, if any. And you'll see that the transom basically curves up and over. Looking over here at the rear view, you can see it's got a little bit of upward curve to it. And that's something that we're going to want to take into account. All right, so that's the gunnel. We'll go down to the first chine below here. This is still above water. This is all the freeboard. The first plank goes from the tip of the bow down, looks roughly like 8 inches or so. Well, not more like a foot. Got a person in here for a scale. And it sweeps on back, and we see that when it gets to the transom, it's just a little bit farther forward than the edge of the transom at the gunnel. So this transom basically slants toward the rear, overhangs a little bit. And looking up here at the upper drawing, we can see the very dark line that is the gunnel. And just inside it, you see a line that's this chine. The chine is just barely inside. This is almost a vertical board all the way around the boat. Alright, going down a little bit lower, we see the next chine, which starts just barely above the water line, and following it back, comes all the way down to the very bottom of the boat. Looking over here at the rear view, you see that the back of this boat is essentially flat. So you've got a more of a knife edge, or axe edge, I guess would be more appropriate because it's kind of blunt, shape at the bow, and it'll get progressively flatter as it goes back to the back. And you look and see one more shape in here that I interpret to be a floor. Basically, this is what you'd stand on in the boat, and below it is a bilge where any water will accumulate. So that your feet don't get wet, and that would have to be pumped out or drained in some manner. Let's see, other things to take into account. There's a little bit of a gentle curve on this transom. Okay, it looks to be pretty much straight across at the very bottom of the boat, and curves just a bit as it goes up. So that's the salient points that I can see about this boat to begin with. One of the first things I want to do is start just laying out some construction lines. I want to put some points in place, and I want to draw some lines from them. So going up to Points, Sketch, I will start by just doing some of the obvious stuff. I'm going to put a point right on the center line at the bow. So there's a point there, and I'm going to change my color to be more visible. We'll make it a bright green. And I'm going to get rid of that point and put a green one in. That way I can see these things, because while I'm looking at the image, which is where most of the construction line business is going to be, I really need to be able to see these points and see these lines. So I've got one on the top view. I want to put one on the side view. All right. Going down to the first chine, there's a point. Coming down here, here's a point. Second chine, same thing. Okay. And really, those are the only points on the front of the boat that I'm going to be terribly concerned with is these intersection lines. When I start basically freehand drawing a spline around here for the gunnel, I want it to touch this point, and it'll intersect with the other one that I draw down here to that point. The stern is going to be a little bit more complex. First thing I want to do is locate a point on the very aftmost part of the stern. I want one where the gunnel meets the curve of the transom. So there's one. And I'm going to put one at the very bottom of the boat where the bottom of the transom sits. That's also really close to where this last chine meets, so we'll have to kind of differentiate that. I'm also going to put one where the first chine meets the transom. Okay. Now, from there, I want to verify that this is actually, vertically aligned. So I'm going to go to Lines, Sketch, and click Sketch Vertical. Going up here to the bow. What this will allow me to do is, when I hold down Shift and click on a point, well, that doesn't actually work with just free points like that. So it's going to rely on cursor positioning, which is not as accurate, but it'll work. So I very carefully put the cursor dead center of that point, click, and I'm drawing a perfectly vertical line upward. Now, looking at my line, it's a little bit inside the drawing down here. Doesn't line up with this point. So I'm going to get rid of it. And I'll work from the top down, and I'll move the bottom point to an appropriate place. This is all, these really have to line up, or the method that I'm going to show won't work. So there's a little bit of basically legwork to be done on this to allow you to go from there into projecting curves onto surfaces and extending surfaces from curves to project onto. And it'll become evident pretty shortly why I've got all this this construction line work in mind. Okay, so I start at the one that was farther forward at the top. Click and bring down. Okay, that's still reasonable on this drawing. Cancel that, and I'm going to move that point. Well, actually, I'm just going to get rid of that point and put another one there, a little better located. We'll put it right there. All right. Now the next one, we'll go from, actually we'll go back to line sketch, and it's retaining the vertical. So I'll click on this one, and as I come down, well, that's a bullseye, or close enough right there. As we really move in, we see that the point was off by a tiny little bit. Let me drag that over. That's what I was forgetting. There we go. Now that's dead on. The same with the next one. And one of the things I'm going to do with this tutorial is I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, because once you get the idea of what I'm going to do with this, there's really not that much need for you to see me going through the basic mechanics of setting points exactly using the basic transform drag command. So once I've got that set, I'm going to finish doing this construction work, and I will pick up the video here momentarily. Okay, that's got all the construction lines taken care of. They're pretty much just what I had talked about earlier. I do want to show a couple of things that are probably important to know up front. Alright, I've got two different points down here at the bottom. They're located just right together. One of them is the keel line, and the other is the bottom chine. I'm assuming that the boat is not entirely flat at the back. Basically, I needed a way to have two lines end in just about the same spot, but not be joined. One other thing is right here, we've got a point that is the first chine below the transom. Right here, and again, when we come up, we find it right there. We have a point that is the intersection of the transom and the gunnel of the boat. And then, of course, we've got the very stern of the boat. So all that is going to come into play when we make some new layers. We'll start with one called side curves. And I'll go ahead and make another one called top curves. What we're going to do is use fitted splines, and I'll start with the side, make that active. Take fitted splines, and I'm going to trace the entire top gunnel and transom of the boat. So I'm going to start back here, and I'm going to go right along the top edge of the boat all the way to the tip. By the way, this feature right in the middle, it always looks like a windshield, and it always makes this boat look ginormous. But what it is a little hatch for storage on the seat. So just throwing that out there. Alright, I'm going to, I'll just very quickly talk about what I'm going to trace, and then I'm going to start doing it. So I'm going to trace the top of the gunnel from the bow all the way back here. I'm going to trace the first chine, not going onto the transom of the boat, but starting right here at this break where the side of the boat begins, going all the way forward. Then I'm going to trace the second chine down from its point on the front of the boat all the way back to this top point here. Then I'm going to trace the whole curve all the way along the bottom of the boat and all the way up. And in every one of these cases, I'm going to extend just a little bit past these points. There's a reason for that that'll become obvious later on. Right now, I'm just letting you know that I'm going to do that. And in order to save a lot of time, I'm also going to make the top curves active, and I'm going to start tracing here. And I'll do one of these just to kind of show the idea of how to do it, but it's really boring and it's repetitive work, and there's no real need in a video tutorial for you to see me doing more than one or two of these. So starting here, I'll come around the gunnel of the boat all the way up to this point, and I will go past it just a little bit. I'm not going to go past it in the back. That's a definite ending point. What I want to do is establish intersections at where the gunnel meets, where the first and the second chines meet. I want those lines to cross so that I can put an intersecting point right there, and I know precisely where those two intersect. That is also something that's going to become important later on, and it'll become obvious why I did it. So right now we'll throw a side curve on, and I'm going to use fitted splines. So I'll go up to my spline tool, grab fit, and again I'm going to start just a little bit behind the actual stern of the boat. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to cross that line, curve down a little bit, Splines, the more points you give them, the more accurate the curve becomes. So when you've got a tight curve, throw lots of clicks in there. When you've got a long, gentle curve, you can really stretch it out. So I went from every couple 3 inches to, we'll throw one out a foot or two, and then 2 feet maybe. And again, just match your density of points to the amount of curvature that you actually need out of the spline. And part of this, by the way, you can see this is very low resolution drawing. I'm imagining where this transom or this gunnel will actually be. It's obvious just watching me do this process that no, this is not an actual construction drawing. This is a piece of advertising basically that I found out on the internet that I've decided to work from. All right, when you throw your last point there, you can be anywhere you want as long as you haven't clicked yet. Then you right click, hit OK, and you'll terminate at your last point. So there's my top. I'll go quickly do a couple of intersecting ones here. I've made the top curves active. So now in this case, I want to position right on the line because I actually have a reason. I want there to be a definite stern to this boat for later purposes. And it's possibly hard to see on the video just because this is a poor drawing and I'm in a gray area with a faint gray line going through it. But I'm following along. Making sure that I don't get lost and wander over onto the deck of the boat here because the line of the deck crosses the line of the chine there. Now I had a definite endpoint at the stern of the boat, but at the front of the boat, I'm going to just aim for my point there, cross it, doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit, drop my final point, click OK, and there I have one side of that curve. And I will go ahead and do one more quickly. Just throwing points along the curve. This is a very gentle curve, so I can stay with a fairly broad, even spacing and still get a spline that looks good. Anytime you get near a termination point where anytime you need to do fussy work, zoom in. Don't cause yourself lots of frustration by trying to work at a macro level to do microscopic work. Well, it's not microscopic, but you get the point. All right, that's okay. That could look a little bit better. You can use deform contour on splines, but you'll wind up with bizarre 3D artifacting going on. There are ways around that, and may get to those in a tutorial in the future. But for right now, take it as read that I've got that one. I'm now going to do the first chine down from the gunnel. I'm going to do the gunnels. I'm going to do the top of the transom, which will be from the side. It's just a very short curve, but you can see looking from the top, it's a broad, gentle curve going up and around the back of the boat. On the side curves, I'll throw in a spline on this first chine and the chine that's down just above, down to below the waterline, and the keel. And I'll do all those and be right back. Okay, now I've finished putting in the splines for the top curves and side curves. I'm done with the construction lines, so I'm going to turn that layer off. In fact, I'm done looking at the imagery because it's time to get into the CAD aspect of this. I've traced all the lines, followed all the hull contours that I can really get out of this drawing. Now I can blank the drawing using the I key, and I'm left with just straight up geometry. One of the things that I suggest doing right now the top curves layer is active. I would suggest anytime you get to a point, basically, as you just saw, okay, I've done all that, I've got all this work sitting here, now I'm going to go and do something with it. Well, doing something with it sometimes causes issues. So it's good to have a copy of it handy. Uh, I've put in -10 in the x-axis here. Top curves is my active layer, so I'm going to select the top curves. I'm going to click the copy button, and then I'm going to hit OK. And if I do it right this time by selecting the top curves, right clicking and clicking OK, or hitting the spacebar works, then that'll actually do something when I click OK. There we go. Now -10x, I've got a full copy of that. If I do something to it and I need to go back and undo it, well, I've got a fresh unmolested copy there. I'm going to set side curves to the active layer and do the exact same thing. Hit reselect here to tell it I'm giving it a fresh selection. Select all of that with the drag box, hit spacebar, click OK, click OK, and there I've got all my geometry, a clean copy of it just set off to the side. Okay, now the purpose of getting this geometry is that I need to take 2D and go into 3D. And I'm going to do this by taking the side curves here and extruding them into surfaces. The scale of this, you can see 1, 2, 3 inches. If I go 3 inches in the negative Z direction, that is straight down as if I were looking down on this drawing from above, I'll be able to rotate all of that directly underneath the top curves. And I'll show you, it's a very quick process, so I'll just do it real quickly and show you. So I'll go extrude curve, give it a distance, -3, click along Z axis. There are several options here. I'll leave with caps on. Preview is set, so give it a little bit of an angle here so you can actually see the preview. So I select a curve, hit the spacebar, click OK, and you can see that it extrudes the surface of that curve. It is, since preview is active, that's not the actual surface, it's just a preview of it, so I have to hit the spacebar, click OK a second time. Ooh, boy, that much green is getting to be a little too much. I'm going to have to change that color. We'll do that here. Well, might as well do it now. We'll make it a nice gray. Cancel out of that. Select and modify to current color. There we go. That's a lot more tolerable. Alright, go back to extrude curve. I've got the gunnel and the transom curve there. I'll go to the first shine. Select it. Hit the spacebar, click OK. I'll get the preview. I like that. Hit the spacebar, click OK again. And repeat the process 2 more times. Alright, so what have I accomplished here? I've got these curves and I need to rotate them under the top. I've got these surfaces and I need to rotate them underneath the top curves. One of the things that I want to do is establish a rotation point. I want it at the intersection of these 2 lines, so simple enough. I go to point, intersection, line, line. That gives me a point there. Now I just want to rotate them 90 degrees. Since I picked the point that is the highest point on the boat as seen from the side, let me go back to a top view so you can just look straight down on these again. I picked that rotation point as the topmost point on the boat. Right now that point is sitting on the XY plane. This drawing is sitting on the XY plane. That being the highest point, that will be the only actual point of contact is right there. So Everything else will be above or below, or rather above the curves, and I'll be able to see it. Now that's you can be above or below curves when you project onto, or below surfaces when you project onto them, but it is helpful to be able to see what you're doing. Alright, so I want to go to rotate. I want to give it 90 degrees around the x-axis. Okay. Select all of those. Click, make sure that I've got pick for my origin. So I've got them all selected. I hit the space bar, click OK to confirm it. Now I need to pick my rotation point. I pick that point. I back off and look to see that my preview, yes, in fact, is putting it right where I want it. Hit the space bar again or click OK, and there you have it. Really quick, really easy, really simple. One thing I do want to do is I want to put it on its own layer. So I want to make a new layer. We'll call it side surfaces. I'm sorry for my typing. I never took typing in school. I have to look at the keyboard, and if anything at all is distracting me, I'm slow as Christmas. Alright, so I select all of these guys. Just do it with a drag box. Right click. Go to Modify Attributes, Layer, click Side Surfaces, and select OK. Now I can turn those on and off at will. And that's the last use that I should have for the side curves. So let's just go ahead and turn them off. And what we're left with is some surfaces and some curves. And by the way, I'm going to go back to yeah, blue will be visible. I'm changing colors around all the time just because it really helps to very quickly know where you are and what you're doing if things are different colors. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to project these curves onto these various surfaces. How do you do that? Well, believe it or not, the command is called project curves to surface. It's under the other tab. So I'll click project curves to surface, and looking down here in the lower left, you see left click or mouse drag window over entities to project, then right click OK. What that means is pick the lines you want to go onto the surface, click OK, and then it'll ask you to pick the surface. First thing I want to do, and I think I'm going to have to redo this, when I was practicing it, for some reason this particular one needed a little bit of loving care, but I'm going to take the lines that form the gunnel and the transom, and I've got them crossed over here. I think I may have to come back, trim those down to make it actually 3 chains connected, and do it that way. But we'll try it this way first and see. So I've got them selected. I click OK. You notice that the prompt down here says left click over solid or surface to project onto. Well, I want the very top most one, so click on it, and you notice suddenly I've got blue lines there. Well, that's nice. So now we just go down through the layers of the onion here. I'll go to a top view to make it easier for me to see these guys. Next I want the first chine down. Select those two, click OK, rotate up until I can select that one surface. I don't even really have to see it to know it's there. In a moment I'll get rid of those and you'll see all of these lines in 3D. Now I'm down to the bottom chine, 1, 2, click OK, pick that surface, and last we're at the keel. Hi cat, how you doing? Cat wants me to play. Click OK and select bottom surface there. Alright, that's got those done. I'm going to make a new layer. Label it 3D curves. I'm going to Go into select mode. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say pick by color. I'm going to pick blue. Hit OK. You notice just the projected curves are lit up now. And I'm going to tell it to add to the layer 3D curves. Now I can get rid of everything but my 3D curves. Now you'll notice this suddenly is looking like the lines of a real boat hull. There's still a few things left to do, but we're getting really close. I'm going to go ahead and end this first part of the tutorial now, and I'll pick up the next part where we'll skin this wireframe. We'll make a solid out of it, and then we'll discuss some of the possible ways or theoretical ways that we could make a more accurate model than what I'm going to show you. That it's a case where theory ran up into practice and took a fearful ass whooping. I've not been able to figure out how to make this look like a plank construction. But again, we'll get into that in the second part of the tutorial, and I hope you've enjoyed what we've got so far, and hopefully you'll have more to see in the next one. Thank you very much.